morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a minute. Good to be back. Just had to take a little time off. This has been a nutty little bit of time. A lot of bullshit going on, and it's kind of hard to get too wound up with the political stuff. With the things that have gone on, especially in the one that's been real heavy on my mind has been what happened over in Maui. I mean, what a mess. And then you've got the whole thing with Trump. But I want to start off with talking about Maui because I think that that's more important than anything going on anywhere really right now. I mean, these are our brothers and sisters that lost everything over there. Children still haven't been found. Loved ones haven't been found. There's a lot of questionable things that went down with that. And if you dive into it like I have, and you follow some of these trails, you follow the money, and you kind of find out where it's going. As with any place, and the similarity is here in Cody, Wyoming, thousands and thousands of miles away from Hawaii. When we pay our power bill here, it goes to the same place because you have the same majority stockholders that own Rocky Mountain Power. So here in Cody, Wyoming, you pay the city of Cody, and then it goes to Rocky Mountain Power, and then it goes to Pacific Power, or whatever they call it now. It used to be PP&L. I don't know what it is now, but it ends up in the same place. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Vanguard. I'm talking about State Street. I'm talking about BlackRock. I'm talking about all the same players. Now, Hawaii Electric over in Lahaina and Maui, okay, they're the ones that are taking the brunt of this thing for their dilapidated grid, right? Now, this is you're going to have to bear with me here because this goes down quite a twisted path, but it all does make sense at some point once you tie it all together. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's, Oprah and Bezos and all that. They're small potatoes in this game. If you could ever consider Bezos small potatoes, he is compared to BlackRock. BlackRock, you're talking about, $10 trillion. I mean, they make those people look like they're just little fish. Do I think that what they're doing was disingenuous? Of course. I mean, Oprah's trying to buy up, she did buy up a bunch of, she's like at what she had, oh God, she's got like 970 acres over there, I believe. And she might have just bought another 1,000. She's trying to buy all this property from people. What are they trying to do over there? That's beside the point. In 2018, they got hit with a fire. You've got above ground power lines. You're on an island, okay? And anybody that's ever lived near the ocean knows that you get salt air and it's corrosive. So you know what that does to the casings on electrical wires, what it does to transformers on the poles, and then you add in the vegetation. Okay, they had upwards of 120% of rainfall this year. So what does that do? Anybody that lives out here understands that because we're going to be going through that shortly because we've had a ton of rain, much more than usual. And what's that do? That makes the foliage grow, right? So we're going to get into some forest fires. Thankfully, it hasn't been that smoky yet. We had some up in Montana. I don't know. I guess they must have got them under control. The wind hasn't been right. We had some smoke last week. I'm surprised we haven't had any yet. I hope we don't. But the fact of the matter is when that foliage grows up like that, it gets extra high, and then it dies in the dry season. Hawaii's 6 months wet season, 6 months dry, And you look at the footage of Maui from the air, and, it's pretty dry right now. And you've got all that extra growth. And guess what happened? All right, you've got PG&E is involved in the equation. Okay, so they were supposed to be the ones responsible for cutting down all the foliage, keeping the tree branches away from all the power lines. It didn't do it. They didn't do it. All of a sudden, this storm comes through, this hurricane. Now, I don't know about you folks, and I don't know about all my friends over there in the islands. I don't know. The way I was taught growing up in school and everything else was that you didn't have hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean. They were referred to as a tropical depression, a monsoon, a cyclone, a typhoon. Now, there's not a lot of difference, but I remember specifically being told by science teachers that the Pacific Ocean didn't have hurricanes. And now they're calling these things hurricanes out there. You had whatever it was, Hurricane Hillary hit Southern California, and then you had Dora hit. And I watched some interviews, and they said the way the thing hit, that it came in from the east. And a survivor that had basically lived on that island her whole life, she said that the weather never hits that way. And she said it wasn't right. And then the date that it happened on 8/8, you can look up the significance of that. I'm not going to get into it because I'm not big into astrology. It's not really my thing. I'm not big on the horoscope or any of that stuff. I think it's kind of I don't think it. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter that much. These people that and females especially. Okay, sorry, not trying to be. Not trying to be, whatever you want to call it, stereotypical, but, by a vast majority, females believe in that shit. What sign are you? What the fuck does it matter? I mean, who cares? But, a lot of people put shit into that. I don't necessarily. I could be wrong. You never know. I'm just an idiot. Anyhow, we'll get back to it here. So let's go back. Let's take it back a little ways, okay? And you're gonna go, okay, you're going down a rabbit hole here. Maybe I am. But let's go back to 1976, okay? There was a act that was passed by Congress, and it was called the Weather Modification Policy Act of 1976. The year I was born, 47 years ago. This pertained to manipulating the weather through seeding clouds, creating rain, snow, what have you. This has gone on with a number of different countries. The United States included, the United Arab Emirates. They've been doing this since, I think they started in 2002. At least that's when they came clear about that's what they were doing. Obviously, they've had this technology for a long time. They used it in Vietnam. So this has been around for a while. So anybody that's ever come down on somebody that's talked about chemtrails and saying that they're nuts and that they're out of their head and all this, that's not the case. This has been going on. They've come up with ways that they can seed the clouds now from the ground without, the big chemtrails and that. But I mean, how many people thought that was bullshit? I mean, I remember hearing that all the time. It's like, how come you see you look up at a jet stream in the sky, and all of a sudden you see it just. It's leaving a big white, and it doesn't go anywhere, right? Big white stream behind it. And you're like, what's that? And then, of course, some adult goes, oh, it's just water vapor. And you're like, well, why did it just shoot out right? Well, it's just atmospheric pressure and this and that and the other thing. No, it's not. It's a combination of sodium chloride, potassium chloride. There's like a silver oxide that's in there as well. And they've been manipulating these clouds for some time. And so in my mind, it's kind of hard for me to believe. Now, okay, climate change, all right? Sure. Guess what? The Earth's climate changes. It happens. We go through cycles. This planet is on a precarious circle around a fireball in the middle of nowhere in space. We can't even define it. What are we doing here? We don't know. Science is bullshit, okay? It's just our way of explaining something. And just because we're sitting there looking at the shadow of something and we think it's real, it doesn't make it so. To sit here and have an argument with somebody, some nitwit about, the age of the Earth. It could be 5,000 years old. It could be 4.6 billion years old. It could be, how am I going to tell? How am I going to tell? Because of carbon dating? Because of some device that I came up with? I don't know everything. I don't know anything. I'm here for maybe 70 years if I'm lucky, right? I mean, I can't really tell you anything that happened before. Probably, I mean, my first memory is 1978. But then from there was nothing till like 1980. I'm 3, 4 years old. What can I say that I can verify before that? Nothing. And to sit here and want to have an argument with somebody about creationism versus evolution. I mean, obviously something. Anyway, I digress. So to sit here and have this argument about the climate change and then say that we had anything to do with it, I don't know. You know, I mean, one of these big volcanoes belches and it puts out more carbon than, you know, than we have in recorded history. I mean, and when did we start putting out carbon emissions? It wasn't that long ago, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, when was the, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. When was the steam engine invented? I mean, and then here's the other thing. Plants, trees, anything that goes through photosynthesis, it takes in CO2 and it puts out oxygen. So if we have a problem with the deforestation, which we do, I mean, these people burning down the rainforest, that's not really a good thing. I mean, you know, there's all kinds of things in there that we don't have any idea about, you know, cures for diseases, God knows what. We won't get into that. What I am getting at is that there has been manipulation of the weather going on since at least 1976 when they passed this bill. And it goes back further than that because they were doing it during the typhoon season in Vietnam. They were trying to bog down the Viet Cong with weather, and they did, and it lasted. They made, well, at least the speculation. It's hard to say because the weather is so intermittent. Like even when we are doing these things, it's like okay, so maybe you had an anomaly, and the typhoon season lasted an extra 45 days, is what they said the year that they did it. So it just happened to coincide with an extended wet season. Coincidence? I don't know. I happen to not believe in coincidence. I don't think there's a such thing as coincidence. I think that you can have a single anomaly along the way. But I think when you have a string of events that just happen to be coincidental and they snowball together and everything's a coincidence, no, that's not what it is. That's by design. And this thing that happened in Hawaii, I mean, you got to have this is a lot of coincidence. And you have a lot of hurting people right now. And that's where my thoughts are at is, you know, I mean, you cannot get better people than come from those islands. I don't care, you know, what you say. You know, the spirit of aloha, you know, I mean, just wonderful, wonderful people, kind people, beautiful people, family people, just really, just amazing folks. I mean, everybody that I know from over there, they're just awesome, awesome folks, you know. I'd love to get over there someday. I've never been over, you know. And I hope that, you know, I hope all my brothers and sisters over there are doing good, doing all right, you know. I mean, it sucks, you know, that the numbers aren't right. You know, you've got kids missing. You had kids getting sent home that day while parents are working. I can't imagine the horror that some of those people must have gone through. You had police turning people around that were trying to evacuate, turning them right back around into the flames. One witness said it was like he kept calling them fire bombs. He said the fire bombs kept going off. Now, that's a pretty big and bold differentiation between a firebomb and a wildfire. Having been around wildfires for most of my life in Wyoming, I remember 1988 was the worst of it. And for those of you that don't remember, 1998 was the big fires in Yellowstone, and that was bad. Like the sky was just blood red, ash just falling. We had baseball games canceled. I remember trying to drive to Billings, Montana. I remember washing my parents' vehicles, and then the next morning going out and there's an inch of ash. It was like there was a volcano. You know, it was horrible. You couldn't breathe. You know, and you know, we were dumb and young back then, and you know, nobody really, I don't think, understood it. We were outside in it all the time, you know. But a lot of people got really sick, and it sucked. And we have fires every year. I mean, it's. I think last year was pretty decent. I'm waiting this year. We've had so much rain. I'm going to be really surprised. I hope we don't. But this thing with Lahaina, I mean, once you start popping those transformers on those poles, and it starts going, it's setting off a chain event, and they turned the water off. Okay, the utilities people turned the water off on those people, and they left the power on. If you know, and this happened in 2018, so it wasn't that long ago. And this is gonna play into it as well. Why wouldn't you have been prepared for this? Why didn't they get out there and get that brush cut? Why didn't they start working on burying these power lines? Almost every place in first world country has buried power lines. When I was a kid here, yeah, they were up on a power pole. They're not now. This ain't some rich community or anything like that. I mean, this town where I live is about the same size as Lahaina. Beautiful town too. Beautiful town. Oh my God. I mean, if you were to tell me I could pick any place to go, that would probably be it. I mean, I've looked at it before. It's just a beautiful little spot, you know? I mean, it looked like the kind of place that I'd want to go. And guess what? There's a lot of people that do want to go there. A lot of rich people want to go there. A lot of indigenous peoples live there. How are they going to get? They got to get them off there, right? I'm not saying anything. I'm just putting it out there. Oprah's already been trying to buy them out. Bezos has got a big chunk of property. Zuck does. Larry Ellison owns the island right across from Lahaina. He owns 98% of that island over there, right? Anybody know who he is? Yeah. The Oracle guy. You guys know what Oracle is? Yeah, they're listening to me right now saying his name and saying that company, you know? I mean, look it up. I'm telling you, folks, you got to do your homework on this shit. And you know, there was a lot of shit that went on when this happened over there to distract from what really transpired and what really mattered. Everybody was so worried about the Trump indictments, and we'll get into that, but you know, there's always something else to distract, right? The news media is always on something else. The news media barely gave this any coverage. The mainstream media barely covered it at all. And it pissed me off because, and then what really pissed me off, and I'm sure that the people of Maui and all of Hawaii are pretty fucking upset about this, because that stupid asshole Joe Biden is on vacation at Lake Tahoe. When they initially asked him what he thought about the fires, when they initially questioned him, he smirked and grinned and goes, no comment, like a pompous ass that he is, and he walks off. And then, after it happens, Trump gets on and gives, he puts out a heartfelt speech. Now, I think Trump would have probably been over there if he hadn't been being indicted and had to be at all these goddamn courthouses. He probably would have been on his plane over there. But he couldn't go because Biden has got him under all these indictments. And so he had to turn around and do something, because Trump put out a very heartfelt message for the people of Maui and Hawaii. And I mean, he's like, I love you. And, you know, I mean, you could tell that it was hitting him, you know? And it's just like, I can't even imagine what those folks have been through. And then to have Joe Biden's pompous ass fly over there on Air Force One, costing all of us $206,000 an hour for that jackass to fly over there, and then stand in front of these people and talk about a fucking kitchen fire. Oh, I almost lost my house to a kitchen fire. No, you didn't, jack off. Just another Joe Biden lie. Yeah, there was a kitchen fire. The fire department came and put it out. Not a big deal. You know, and then he talks about, I know about loss. I lost my son Bo in battle. And no, you didn't. He didn't die in battle. Now, am I saying that I'm not saying anything derogatory about his son, because I think that he was probably a decent guy from everything I saw. And I wouldn't wish cancer on anybody. But he did not die on the battlefield. He was back here in the United States when he passed away. And that's a fact. And Joe Biden seems to have a real big problem with fact. And so for him to go over there and do that, and then tell these people that, oh, it's going to be built back better, or whatever the fuck is Bidenomics bullshit. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And I do not understand how in the world they're coming up with these polling numbers with this guy. How in the world is there even 30% of the people out there that are approving of this moron? This guy can't even. He's a pompous ass. He's a jerk. You know. The only reason that he had is not that he's Mr. Father of the Year with his kid. He's used that kid of his because he knew he was a drug addict, and he knew he could manipulate him and put him in these positions to where he could peddle his influence to these other countries. He put that drug addict kid on planes. He was sending him money. He knew he was an addict, and he's sending him hundreds of thousands of dollars while they're taking payments from China, from Romania, from Russia, God knows where else. Filtered it through all these LLCs. The proof is there. It's there. He came out and admitted in 2018 at a CFR luncheon that he was the one that got Viktor Shokin fired as the prosecuting attorney in Ukraine because he was investigating Burisma. Joe Biden jumped on a plane and went over there when he found out. It wasn't like he was over there doing some kind of diplomatic work. He used the $1 billion that we were going to give them in aid, and he dangled it in front of him. And he said, if you don't fire Shokin, you're not getting your money. My plane's leaving in 6 hours, and if he's not fired, you're not getting your money. He said that in front of everybody, and all those assholes at the CFR, they all laughed. Slap each other on the back. Oh, did you hear that, Wally? Oh, Joe. That's called quid pro quo. That's what they impeached Trump on because of his conversation with Zelensky, which was recorded, and he didn't say anything wrong. He mentioned, you might want to look into this. That was it. You know? And Shokin gets fired. And, hey, Brian Kilmeade, and hats off to you, Kilmeade. I've been talking about this shit with Shokin for years. And anybody that's listened to my show, they know. I've been bringing this up for years. That Joe was the quid pro quo. He was quid pro Joe. I mean, I think I was probably the first one to coin that term. And now, just now, here we are in 2023 going on 2024. And finally, Brian Kilmeade interviews Shokin. Finally. You know, going on 4 years into this bullshit with this Biden asshole. You know? I mean, almost 3 or whatever it is. And using this January 6th thing, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. We've seen that wasn't the case. We've seen what set that off. You've seen the truth. Tucker Carlson he's the man right now. Straight up. He's killing it. And I bet Fox is just kicking themselves in the ass because that was the only good thing they had going for them. They suck. They suck just as bad as CNN. Watching them, I mean, Kilmeade did a good interview, and I like Gutfeld. But the rest of them, I mean, whatever. I'm not even going to get into it. But it's pretty pathetic what happened in Maui. And here's the other thing. Let's get back on that because I really want to run through this. Josh Green is the governor of Hawaii. He's a medical doctor. Now, anybody want to take a guess where he was at July 12th of this last year? He was speaking in front of the United Nations about his plan for the island of Maui for their 2030 agenda and the 2050 agenda. Now, what's that entail? That entails going on sustainable energy, right? So that means no more gas, right? So you're going to get rid of, you're getting rid of all the gas-powered, any gasoline-powered engines, diesel engines, anything like that, gone. They're going all electric. Now, if that's the case, if that's what you're shooting for, how in the hell do you still have an electric grid that's dilapidated, above ground, falling apart, and has brush and trees encroached on it everywhere? Anybody see the footage of that place? It's bad. And that wasn't a wild, it ruined, they said that they're not even going to be able to identify people. This was like being in a microwave. That's how fast it was. People were out there bobbing around in the ocean. There were boats that were in the water that burned. How's that work? How does that happen? Now, I'm not getting behind the whole weaponized lightning thing. Now, they can do that. They have come up with a technology where they can seed a cloud in a thunderstorm, and they can use a laser, and they can point it at something, and they can have the lightning hit that area. I've seen it. There's there's a bunch of stuff out there. There's a whole deal in BBC 2012 about it. All you have to do is look up, weaponized weather. And there's another guy, whistleblower, that came out the other day that had the keys to a bunch of this shit down in Antarctica. He said you wouldn't believe what's down there. He said the biggest telescope that is basically kind of like in the ground. He was trying to explain. I've not gone that far into it, but it was like, holy cow. I mean, there's stuff out there that we don't have a clue about, and that's what this guy said too. He goes, I had the keys to this stuff down there in at the South Pole, and he goes, people would just be appalled if they knew what was down there. And I've heard that and thought, okay, well, conspiracy, this and that. So here's the thing. This weather system came in from a completely atypical direction. Now that happens where I live sometimes. We're landlocked. We're in the middle of we're in the middle of Wyoming. I mean, you've got mountains and you've got all kinds of things at play. I mean, the weather system's typically going to come in from a certain direction in the ocean, I would think. And for somebody that's a local, sorry, I just cracked my knuckles. I know some people hate that. I crack them all the time. I don't care. If you don't like it, tough. But for somebody that's a local that's, lived their whole life out there, to say that this never happens, and those, the wind gusts to come up like that, I mean, you got to ask yourself, were those clouds seeded? Did they set this off? Because if this happened in 2018, and they knew this was a threat, and when you have BlackRock, you have State Street, you've got Vanguard, you've got Geode, you've got Philip Morris, you've got Chase, you've got all these common denominators that they have a piece of everything. Okay, who went and got McDonald's this morning on their way to Monday morning work? Look it up. Who's been to Walmart this weekend? All you got to do is get online and look up majority shareholders in any business that you go to. Who's buying up foreclosed houses? Who owns these guys, they're all in it together, right? And you'll see they're always on the top of the list. And the reason they do that, it's the same guys. They're just doing it. They get their own piece, and they're all in it together. I mean, they own this world. They own it all. They own the globe. It doesn't matter where you go. They own it all. And they've tried to stay underneath the radar. They really have. Only recently has it even come out. Most people don't even know. I mean, most people I talk to, I bring up BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Berkshire Hathaway, Geode, any of these, they look at me like, what? It's like, dude, everything they own. When did you get gas last? If you're pumping gas at any gas station, they own that. They own everything. And so you can't tell me, what these companies do, right? They're investors. So they're not putting in their own money. They've got big corporations that they take their employees' 401ks and they invest them with these companies. And so they take that money and they diversify it, right? So they put it out there in these EFTs and these different funds and that's, that was the big problem in 2008 with the housing crash, because all these people's, 401ks had been diversified into these junk bonds and bullshit that there's nothing behind it, and that's, so you can't tell me that at this point in time, after having had that happen in 2018, now granted, Maui's, it's a little fish in a big pond, but these people are sharks. They know where their investments are. So don't you think that it would make sense that if they had this issue come up in 2018 and they just barely skated out of that, wouldn't an outfit that has, a net worth of $10 trillion, I'm talking double trillions, okay, that BlackRock is worth, would they not have thrown a little bit of dough at that place, buried those power lines, and shorted up? Because their goal over there is to go electric. So if your goal, and it's in 2023 right now, and your goal is to go electric, and you've got a dilapidated system that's above ground like a third world country, and 70-mile-an-hour winds burns down your island. What's going on? These big companies, these investment corporations, fucking BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they have people out there that are paid very handsomely to take care of these type of things. They're there to take care of these type of problems because that's their customers' money that's being invested in this shit. So why would they let that happen? They knew it was coming. You can't tell me that this was just an oversight. These are the type of business. These guys don't have oversight. They've got people upon people upon people upon people. They don't have that. These are evil fucking corporations. And all they give a shit about is money. So, why was Josh Green talking to the United Nations? Twice. Keynote speaker. Governor of Hawaii. Keynote speaker at the United Nations summit that they had in New York City on July 12th. And I believe he spoke on July 13th this year, 2023. Talking about Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050. Laying it down where they were at. We're behind on this. We're on track on this. Okay. Then why do you have a dilapidated energy grid and you knew it? You know it. He's got all these other numbers. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. If you can get online and you can look up everything about the speeches that he gave. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of it because a lot of it, quite frankly, I can't even decipher. I deciphered some of it, but I'm going to go back to it. But when you're that detailed about every little thing about where you're at in your state, on your islands, where you're progressing, and okay, we're a little behind here, we're on track here. How do you have oversight? How do you just not realize that you've got a serious fucking problem and that that the money was paid to clear all that brush and the trees and the foliage and everything off those power lines. It was paid. It didn't get done. How do you miss that? How do you have all of these details, all of these statistics laid out like Josh Green did? You're a keynote speaker in front of the United Nations as the governor of Hawaii, and you've got all of these numbers and everything, and it's all broke down. You're a medical doctor. He's a smart guy. And then you look at his reaction when they were asking him about the missing children, and he gave the press a look like, I don't know. Like, it was like, there's something not right there. There's something not right. And if you think that this is just a weird-ass coincidence and that it was just the perfect storm, yeah, it was the perfect storm, all right, but I would be willing to say that it was by design because you don't have coincidence. There's no such thing in life as coincidence, people, and you can take that to the bank. And I'll stand behind that at any point in time. You might have a weird anomaly here and there, but you don't have coincidence that just rolls downhill like that. It doesn't just, and an anomaly doesn't just kick something off like that. You had a siren system, okay? What about when they set the sirens off when they thought that the missile was coming from North Korea? And everybody thought they had 10 minutes to live. People are taking shelter. They're calling their family. They're crying. They're thinking, God, it's done. They have one of the most sophisticated siren systems, warning systems of any place on the planet, and they didn't bother to even kick those off. They said, oh, we were worried that it was going to make people, because usually it's for a tsunami, so we thought that it would make people run into the middle of fire. Well, what about the police that were turning around evacuees that were trying to leave and turning them around and going back in the flames? And this is not a wildfire, ladies and gentlemen. A wildfire doesn't burn down a fucking city. That's not a wildfire. A wildfire is in the wild. Yeah, there's vegetation there, but you got trees that are still standing. And it's kind of weird when you look at the drone footage that I've looked at. All the nice places, the really nice, none of the celebrities' places got hit. Oprah's place didn't get hit. Bezos' place didn't get hit. Luke Wilson's place didn't get hit. Owen Wilson, I think or it's Owen or Luke, I can't, one of the Wilson brothers, maybe both of them. All these people, these celebs, didn't happen. I saw footage of one guy that was in a helicopter, and you see these smaller houses, and all of a sudden you've got this great big palatial estate, and there's fire trucks all over surrounding the place, and it's just like a perfect ring around it. None of the trees burnt, none of the home burnt, but all around it was burnt, and there was a number of homes like that. The bigger homes, for some reason, they didn't burn. Doesn't it seem like the bigger the home is, the more wood you got on that motherfucker? Isn't that that's more tinder for the fire, right? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure this shit out, It doesn't take a genius at all. So, I mean, I don't even know. I can't even say, I'm not going to say it. You say, hearts and prayers and thoughts, and that don't do shit. It doesn't bring these people back. It doesn't bring these kids back. It doesn't fix the problem. I mean, this town is decimated, and it was a beautiful place, full of beautiful people. I mean, it was the type of place I would have loved to have gone over there and spent some time in that town. I mean, it was just a nice place. Right there on the water. God, small place too. Like, 10, 13, I think 13,000 people, shy of 13,000 people, not very many people. And now what are these people going to do? They're going to build low-income housing projects, and they're going to come in there, and they're going to, they're not giving them insurance payouts. The people whose homes did manage to stay up where they could still live, they got served eviction notices. Do you know what that means? That means that these landlords went through their attorneys, who then went through the courts, who then gave the eviction notices to the sheriff's department, who then served them on these people after they'd just been through this. Where are these people even at right now? No, and there's nothing. You don't see anything about it. All you hear about is the Trump indictments and shithead Biden, and the Republican fucking debates with all those shitheads up there. Who wants to listen to those morons? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's pretty pathetic. I mean, this is my thing. I don't give a shit about whatever, I mean, when we've got a choice between Trump and Joe Biden, that's the best the Democrat Party can do is Joe fucking Biden. Who else is going to put out there? What are they going to crank Hillary up? They're going to fucking plug her in and send her out there again? Watch her glitch out and fucking, call people names and act like Jesus Christ. And then what do? They come out and what do they? I've watched so many of these idiots. I was just watching that stupid idiot, that fathead Cenk Uygur and Anna Gasparian on the Young Turks just a little bit ago. And what do they bring up? They bring up the listed height and weight that they wrote down for Trump when he was getting his mugshot. And the mugshot is great. The mugshot's great. I don't care what you say. That's gangster right there. They got t-shirts and memes and all. And so let's see what this did, okay? All right, I'm going to get off the Hawaii thing for right now, but we're going to revisit this, and I'm going to keep coming back to it because there's more to this. I'm hoping I can get some of my friends from over there to come on and jump on the show and give their insight to what went on over there. If they're, I'm trying to, I don't want to hassle anybody at this point in time just because you got to be respectful of people, unlike Joe Biden, who just shows up over there and just completely disrespects everybody. I'm going to bring up, this is going to be the motorcade of Trump, okay? And he's going through a neighborhood in Atlanta in the motorcade, and I want you to watch the reaction of the people, okay? Now, this is not a white neighborhood. What the Democrats have done here is they've just, they're saying, he might be in prison he's not going to be in prison they don't even have anything on this guy. What do they got? Did he question an election? What about Stacey Abrams? What about Hillary Clinton? What about Obama? What about fucking Al Gore? What about anybody? The Democrats, they always call it a cheat. Hillary Clinton was calling Trump an illegitimate president, all the way through his term. And, yeah, she won the popular vote, but guess what? He's smarter than her, and he figured out that, hey, the Electoral College is what calls this thing, and that's what matters, and that's why your vote doesn't matter. You understand that? That's why your vote doesn't matter. Trump knew that. The guy's he's a shifty businessman. I mean, they understood how this worked. They're like, okay, well, she won the popular vote, but guess what? That's not how it's set up. And there's a reason for that. And so these idiots in the city can't just make all the rules for, the rest of us that live, that are hardworking people that don't, sit in traffic all day and live in a dumbass city. So anyway, we're going to watch a little bit of this here. And I want you to see the reaction of these folks in Atlanta. I think this is fantastic. Let's see if we can get this going here. And we'll go to this other scene. Let's go. There we go. All right. So this is after he got his mugshot taken. Here we go. Check this out. Oh, and by the way, I had to find this footage on BitChute because they don't even want you to see it on YouTube.
Y'all see it, man. Which one are you in, though? Donald Trump. I'm talking about they got everybody. Look at that truck, dog.
All right. How about that? That's pretty crazy, huh? And this is something that's going on all across the country. I mean, people are finally realizing that, that's what I've been asking the whole. What did Trump ever do that was so racist? I mean, you had black unemployment at an all-time low. I mean, he obviously he's not a racist. I mean, and then they say he's a homophobe and this and that. Well, who's the guy that opened up like Florida dance clubs and shit for gay people? Him. He was, I mean, come on. He was everybody's favorite person until all of a sudden he decides to run for president. And then these people lost their minds. Trump derangement syndrome, and whatever. It doesn't even, it's just funny, I mean, that's why I had to go and make that one meme out of it. I couldn't resist either. I might make some t-shirts or something out of that. But anyway, I don't know what can be done. I mean, if you can, I suppose, try and help these people out in Hawaii. I mean, the only thing I can do is just, put the word out there about this thing, because I think this was probably, I mean, it was grossly negligent at best. And realistically, I think it was nefarious and it was malevolent. And by design. When these people aren't going to get insurance payouts for their property, the first thing Josh Green says is, well, the state's going to come in and take this property so these investors can't come in and pick it up for a song. Why would he say that? Why would that be the first thing that the governor of the state would say when you've got 1,000 people missing yet? Why are you going to bring that up? Why are you going to bring up financial shit? You've got lives on the line here. They had just brought in dogs and just got, search and rescue and shit over there. They'd only gone through like 3% of the island so far at that point in time. And that's the first thing he brings up. That's a little bit suspect to me. I would think that would not be something that I would be talking about were I the governor. If anybody asked me a question about anything shit like that, I'd say, listen, we got priorities here. We got people to find. We got to figure out where we're going to house these folks, and we got to figure out what we're going to do here to get this thing swinging and do something for everybody here. I mean, that's your priority. It's not the state's going to take the land, so the investor. So that tells you right there, you've got people that are chomping at the bit to get on that property. You already know that, We already knew that, and they're trying to turn it into the first smart, first smart island. So how are you going to turn it into a smart island when you got a dumbass electrical grid? I mean, if you look at this, I'm going to pull this back up. Now you can tell what neighborhoods people give a shit about, right? Here, let's pull this one back up. Let's be on pause here. Now look where those power lines are there in Atlanta. Look at the people on the sidewalk. I'm just saying. You want to say there's not racial disparity? Why in the hell do they not have those power lines buried? You know what kind of weather Atlanta, Georgia, they get all those storms and shit. Big, huge winds coming through there. Look at that. Look at those old power poles. That power grid is all right there. They got the trees trimmed back when you look at it. But that's third world country shit right there. I bet you go into a nice neighborhood in Atlanta and I bet you every single power line is buried. Probably nice fucking, substations, transformers behind fences and shit. Everything's grounded out right and everything. You're not going to have a tree branch fall over into something and fucking burn the whole goddamn place down. I could almost guarantee that. I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating. Some of these are guesses. But, look at that neighborhood. Those power lines are running from those are old ass posts. Look at them. Some of them are just white. They don't even have any creosote left on them. Just ready to snap the next big wind. Maybe they already, who knows? I don't know. I've only been to Atlanta a couple times. I'm not that familiar with it. And when I have been there, it's just been off at the airport into a rental car and down the road. So I've experienced the traffic, but I haven't spent time in any neighborhoods or anything there. So I don't know much. I'm probably speaking out of my ass here, but just looking at that, you can tell when you see a neighborhood and there's no white people there. Okay. So you see what's up, and you look at that. Go to a white neighborhood in Atlanta, I'll bet you don't have power lines like that. Just saying. And I can look it up. Maybe I'll do that next time I come on. We'll do a little cross-examination, and we'll see. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It's happened before. If I'm mistaken, then I'll eat it. But I would say that that's probably not the case. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. I went longer than I wanted to, but I'm happy to be back on. It just took a little bit getting through all this stuff. Just a lot of things going on. I wanted to make sure I was making sense of everything before I started, shooting my mouth off. And I may have jumped the gun anyways, but it wouldn't be the first time, right? So on that note, I'm going to get out of here. Hope everybody's well. Have a great week. Enjoy your Mondays, I suppose. I'm going to look at the weather, and I think I'm going to go out and do some weed eating, and then I'm going to get on my dirt bike and go find some rocks. Why not? And no, not those kind of rocks. Not Hunter Biden rocks. I'm talking about jaspers and chalcedonies and agates and things like that. Come out for a visit. The rule is anybody who comes here gets a nice new shiny semi-precious gemstone. I've got whole piles of them. I've been getting into rock tumbling. They turn out pretty cool. Maybe I'll do an episode on rock tumbling or something like that. Lighten up the air a little bit. I enjoy it. All right. As we say from out here, from 52 miles east of Jellystone Park in Coyote, Wyoming, be good or be good at it. In all things, be kind and do no harm. Take care of each other.